Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the podcast this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm James O'Dowd, founder and CEO of Patrick Morgan. It's an absolute pleasure today to be joined by a good friend of mine, someone I've known for a while, Jamil Khatri, who is the founder and CEO of Unicus. Prior to joining Unicus, Jamil led the KPMG's accounting advisory practice globally, a $1 billion business and over 4,000 consultants. He took the decision in 2022 to take the entrepreneurial venture, founding Unicus, and since then has successfully scaled the business globally across the US, into the Middle East, and an initial venture in Europe. Jamil, it's an absolute pleasure to be joined by you today. How's everything going?
Very well, and James, it's a pleasure to see you again, and look forward to the conversation.
We've known each other for a long time. We've had some excellent discussions. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get on a podcast and just bring to life some of the context we've had. But before we dive into that, we'd just love, if it's okay, just introduce yourself in your own words a little bit, learn a bit about you, your history to date, and that'd be really helpful.
No, sure. And I think, as you said, KPMG was a great journey for me. I started up with KPMG when they were starting up in India, very in the early days. Started off as an auditor. Was very fortunate. I got the opportunity to work with a lot of Indian companies when they were raising capital in the US markets. This was the 90s, James. They were very fashionable to list on NASDAQ. So I rode that wave, became an expert at US GAAP and SEC matters. Sarbanes-Oxley came along the way, so did a lot of work around that. Initially did that as an auditor, and then I realized there was a big consulting opportunity to help finance organizations to step up as they kind of made the change. A lot was happening in that space, so I set up an accounting advisory services business for KPMG in India. Led that, scaled that to 500 people, built a very nice team around that. And then I was fortunate for 4 years to lead this business, as you said, globally for KPMG. Spent a lot of time in the US, spent time in Germany, in France, Japan. The Middle East was emerging, spent time there. And my last 7 years, James, was the part of the leadership for KPMG in India, the part of the leadership team. By this time, small baby KPMG had become 36,000 plus people. And I felt that was time for me to try something different. And that led me to Unicus.
It's a fascinating story. I love entrepreneurial ventures and always incredibly inspired by folks who take the punt and scale the business. I mean, expand on that a bit, but what did you see? I mean, you were well set at KPMG, running a really successful global business. What inspired you? Well, why did you wake up one morning? And is it something you were thinking about for a while? Is it something you saw? What energized the initial founding of the company?
Sure. I think this was building for a while. In the sense that, for 27 years, I saw the inside of how consulting worked, how global consulting worked, many pluses, many kind of strong things. But equally, there were certain challenges that, despite efforts by very smart people within, you realize that structurally you were organized in a particular way 100 years ago. And maybe some of those things had become big challenges and obstacles today. So that really was how it was playing out. I think ultimately when I got to the decision that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, what really came to life was if one had to build a new age consulting company from scratch, if you had to, through a design principle, design something that was relevant for the future, what would that look like, right? And there were 5 theses, James, around Unicus. The first really was around specialization. Because I felt that the big consulting companies had become generalists. They tried to do everything. And, as I say, if you're an expert at everything, you're seldom expert in anything. And I think for me, the real belief was if you could create something that was very focused on a few areas and go deep, that specialization would kind of really be relevant for the future. The second thesis was around being truly a global platform. And I saw this not just at KPMG, but across all consulting companies. Everyone called themselves kind of global, but ultimately it was an aggregation of national partnerships. And therefore, within a geography, people would tend to serve clients in their geography, even though the best talent to serve something was available somewhere else, right? Now, of course, you always ended up setting up delivery centers, but I found that consulting talent did not want to work in delivery center. They wanted to be in front of clients, exposed to clients, right? So, how do you really create a global platform with one P&L that is not impacted by national profit pool? So that was the second thesis around Unicus. Third thesis was technology. And remember, James, this was before GPT and Gen AI really came to life. But even then, my belief really was that if you're providing a consulting solution to a client, and if technology is integral, why do you not build and own your own proprietary tech stack? And that effectively was the building thesis, that if we go in and serve a client, of course, there is a bunch of technology out there, but in the core areas, could we build our own tech stack? And that's really what we kind of did. Fourth thesis was this whole audit, non-audit conflict. I think for way too long, we were trying to fight that, to believe that we could put in guardrails around that. And again, my belief was, why do I need to do audits? Why can't you form a pure play consulting company that doesn't have conflicts that effectively you have if you do audit and non-audit as well? And finally, a corporate structure, because under the partnership model, everyone lived for partner income for the year. Of course, you wanted to invest, but you knew that if you retired from the firm, or if you moved out, you really don't own anything, and therefore your ability to and your intent to invest for the future was to that extent limited. You were relying on your own capital, and therefore the corporate structure to enable us to raise capital and invest capital, and along the way make sure that people who built Unicus or built the firm own equity in the company, was a guiding principle that we started with. And we saw a lot of talent wanting to own equity in a consulting company, which previously they couldn't because of partnership structure, right? So all of that, and like you pointed out, I don't think any of this happened overnight. They are all things that you want experience over a long period of time. And finally, that really was how Unicus was designed and built, James.
With that in mind, was this something that you set out from day one across those five different features, the corporate structure, the equity ownership? Or was it something that evolved over time? Did you come in with a different mindset to where the business is today structurally? Was it talent that led that? Was it markets? How did you come to the business as it was? Or is it just very similar structurally from what it was back in 2022?
Yeah, when I look back there is a 4-page document that I prepared. And actually, I don't quite like PowerPoint, so I stay away from that. And I wrote a 4-page note. And, even today, when I go back to that note, of course, a lot has evolved on AI. Some of the principles may have moved, but I think for the most part, I think this was the design principle with which we formed Unicus and which we stayed true to. To some extent, we may have broadened what we did. So, for example, we do valuations today, which I did not envisage we would do at that point in time. But for the most part, the 5 guiding principles that I kind of laid out were by design, James.
I'd love to see that document one day. I'd be lovely, amazing to read. I'm just thinking, right? So I think there's a lot of folks who are being inspired by your story, probably watching this, but a bit of a fear of the unknown, right? And I just wonder if you can talk to us a little bit about the challenges, what was difficult early on. The idea was quite clear. You had a structure in mind. You could see why this would work. What did you learn once you started getting going? What did the first couple of months look like? What surprised you?
Yeah, I think if you step back, I think the first important thing actually was, while in theory all of this kind of looked beautiful, a lot of it had not been done earlier actually. And the first thing was to convince oneself that you would like to leave a job that was amazing, colleagues who you love to work with, a platform that you had grown with, and move to something which was uncertain. And I think that's always a very difficult trade-off. You're an entrepreneur, James, and you've seen this. I think the trade-off always is, are you willing to let go of the certainty of a large platform with all the limitations and challenges it comes with, to embrace entrepreneurship, which effectively is actually the other side of entrepreneurship is uncertainty. The two sides of the same coin, right? So I think that kind of took a while to get to that decision, and so that's one thing I thought I'll just share with the group. I think the good thing about it though was I had reached a stage where I had concluded the next phase of my life was I will do stuff which I enjoy doing, and I will not do stuff that I don't get joy from. And I think that really made the decision in some way, that kind of helped in the decision, because I'm very clear that I love consulting and that's what I wanted to do, right? So I think that really how it started. I think in terms of the challenges, many challenges, as you can imagine. But I think the good thing is that because a lot of people were thinking like me, a lot of people were in platforms where they were experiencing the same challenges. Suddenly, Unicus became a very good platform for people to come together, right? Because earlier, let's say if somebody was unhappy with a big consulting company, their other option was to go to another consulting company, and therefore I think our ability to bring in the very high quality talent that we were able to bring in initially really eased the way for the most part. I think convincing the first few set of people to work with us is always difficult. I remember my first client in the Bay Area is now $100 billion market cap company. At that time, they were a 10 billion market cap company, and my first meeting with the chief accounting officer, his first kind of going in position to me was, I really don't like consultants, so I'm not sure why I should engage with you. And honestly, what can you say at that stage, right? All you say is give us a chance, and then let the quality of what we do talk for itself. So I think to get away from a situation where you were used to people calling you, to actually working your way through, proving yourself from scratch, I think those were some real challenging time, not just for me, but for I guess all the leaders who kind of came together to build Unicus Gyms.
And what was that like in terms of putting that founding team together? Was it generally a group of colleagues you worked with before? How much did you leverage sort of external relationships? How easy was that to do and put together and to inspire similarly folks who had been probably working in large firm environments to come and join you? What did you tell them? How did you get them involved?
Yeah, I think some of it was easy. So my co-founder Sandeep, who you met in the past, he's amazingly entrepreneurial. So he was a guy who didn't need too much convincing. He was the guy who was saying, let's do something, Jamil. I think some of the leaders in India who had worked very closely with me, they were facing similar challenges, and therefore, again, it was not very difficult to get them on board. I think the US initially was a little bit difficult because, of course, while there were people who had worked with me in my global role, they worked in a different environment. So, working through the network, working with common friends, and convincing people why Unicus kind of made sense for them took time. The Middle East was very interesting, James. My leader for Saudi Arabia, Saad Al Katlan, he was a senior EY audit partner. And when I asked Saad, why did you finally decide to join Unicus? And his thing was, I always wanted to do something different. I didn't know where to go. I didn't effectively have the energy to set up something from scratch. So when I see Unicus as a platform that's already being built by somebody, I want to be a part of it. I want to own part of it and grow with it, right? So I think different kind of stories, but ultimately, I think what's really worked well for us is we've tapped into a very strong pool of talent out there who has the same view and has kind of come together to build Unicus.